I just wanted to ask you if you could talk a little bit about how we can move through the experience of loss and grief, and how we can do it in a way that reflects our knowledge and the strength that we can gain through our practice.
See, the thing is that most unhappiness from loss is brought about by our having either negligent or almost intentional inaccurate expectations about life. Loss is life. You have an experience, and that experience is something that is always changing, and there's going to come a point where that experience no longer is possible or available. And it's just a reality of life. There's nothing in the relative world that stays the same. And that's why when we meditate, we like to ground ourselves, anchor ourselves in the one place that doesn't change. There's one place that doesn't change. It is the absolute field of being that underlies all of this thinking and underlies these bodies. When we study all of the ancient texts, what we discover is statements like, there is something inside that never changes. Water cannot wet it, fire cannot burn it, weapons cannot cleave it, wind cannot dry it. It is not a body. It is the unbounded consciousness field. We can accurately expect that always to stay the same, throughout our lifetime. When we discover that layer of ourself that is completely immune to change, it's alone immortal. Everything else is mortal. And for us to be alarmed at either a decline or a sudden or graded loss of a body, for example, and most of our grief comes from, bodies disappearing. There was a body there, and now the body's not there anymore. There was an accessible personality at that address. That's the body address. And now the house is demolished. The body address isn't there anymore. And so then, we have to have enough. Here's a great word for you for your dictionary searches: perspicacity. It means, the ability, the wisdom that you have based on clear sensory perception, perspicacity. To be perspicacious is to take into account what your senses are telling you, and then to develop wisdom based on what it is that you're seeing, tasting, touching, smelling, and hearing. And so we need to know all of these bodies are going to go, and therefore an ounce of prevention is worth a ton of cure. First of all, we need to have a deep understanding. Knowledge is based on two things: direct experience and intellectual understanding of that direct experience. So we want to, in advance of the losses, this is the cure part, have an understanding that there is something that underlies all of this. And I've recently held a course entitled Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad. Bhagavad means supreme personality, and Gita means song of the Supreme Personality. It's the story of Krishna, who was and has now become a mythologized figure, having 5,000 years ago a conversation with his cousin, who was also his primary disciple, while on a battlefield in the no man's land, right at the commencement of a phenomenal war that took place, an epic war that took place in North India some 5,000 years ago. And Arjun was bemoaning the fact that any minute now, no matter what he did, whether he decided not to fight or he decided to fight, and he was going to be destroyed, and thousands, hundreds of thousands of deaths would occur. And it was in that environment that Krishna taught Arjuna Vedic meditation, exactly our practice, on a battlefield, out in the middle of a no man's land, just prior to a war. Preparation for the inevitable. And what is the inevitable? War or no war, the death rate on Earth so far is 100%. You know, we might think of, well, we've always got longevity on our side. Okay, you live to be 102 and then you die. Even more longevity. How about 800 years like Methuselah? All right, you live 800 years and then you die. And so we need to get over this idea that there's something that's not going to die. You know, the relative world is a big mass of death. That's what it is. It's transitioning all the time. What are you doing about that knowledge? That's supposed to cause you to seek that doesn't die. The one indivisible whole consciousness field out of which everything issues forth. All things that exist issue forth from a consciousness field that doesn't die. And so, discovery of that. Now, on our road to this, before we become very knowledgeable with direct experience of that's first part of knowledge, and good intellectual understanding, that's second part of knowledge. On the road to that, some people are going to die. Before we become stabilized in our knowledge about, how, I know that this is a transition of consciousness through a body. Into a body came this consciousness, and, it was baby body first, and then that was gone, and then it was toddler body, and then that was gone, and then it was running around the house with peanut butter on the fingers body, and now that's gone. And then it was teenager body with lots of, I don't like you, mommy and daddy, and now that's gone. And then it was 20s and entering a career, and now that's gone. And then it was 30s, where people are beginning to kind of get serious about what their personal role is in the evolution of the world. And that will also go. So we see this transition of life through all of these phases of a human body. Now one more transition is going to occur. And when that transition occurs, if it catches us off guard, by the way, it's human to grieve. What does grieving mean? It means adjusting your thinking. Grieving. I'm adjusting my thinking. I'm adjusting my emotions. I'm trying to gain perspective. And in the process of gaining that perspective, there is powerful sensations. Mind, senses, and all of that have geared themselves to expectations of permanence that turned out not to be accurate. And, when we arrive at that which is accurate from a place where inaccuracy had dominated our awareness, the movement between the inaccuracy and the accuracy is laden with sensations. Lots of sensations. Emotional sensations, physical sensations, and all of that. But we're on our way to accuracy. And so then there are two ways of dealing with grief. One is for it to be very prolonged and, for a long arrival at accuracy, laden with all kinds of irrelevant things like, I don't want to think about it, or I'd rather not experience it, or other things like, oh, somebody's dead, they're just dead, come on, move on. Having not allowed any conclusive experience to arrive, maturation of conclusive experience. They're just dead, forget about it, move on. Which is as much as to say, you've had a trauma, don't think about it. That's the best thing. Just don't think about it. Pretend it never happened. Not good advice. it's better for us in advance to dive into all of the richest philosophical traditions of the world, the wisdom traditions of the world. And I recommend one in particular, the Vedic wisdom tradition, which addresses this whole thing very squarely. What is it that dies? It's not just who dies, because the answer to that is anything with a body dies. It is, what is it that's actually dying? What is it that is going into an unrecognizable transition? We use that word death for that. Unrecognizable transition. Somebody was locatable in this particular form, and now they're not locatable anymore in that form. Does it mean they cease to exist? This is a spoiler alert. The Vedic philosophy says, no, they do continue to exist. You might arrive at the conclusion you can no longer have shared experience with this person. Oh, so sad. The Vedic worldview says, well, if you have a broadened consciousness state, there's nothing about a body that ever stopped you from having shared experience. You love somebody. Oh, you're in New York and I'm in Los Angeles. I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. Oh, I love you so much, I love you so much. They're not in the room with you. You're just loving away. They're not in the room. They're loving away. They love, 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 love. And then you get the news that, some meteorite landed on Los Angeles or something and they're not there anymore. And then, what happened? You were loving them without them being in the room. Now you can't love them anymore and they're still not in the room. What was it you were doing when you had the attention on them being in their body? Love, 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 love. Now they're not in their body, can't love anymore. Why do that to somebody? Why do that to somebody? Why can't you continue loving? You can continue loving. We love in absentia most of the time. Even if you absolutely are fortunate enough to have the body of your loved one lying right next to you in a bed at night, you ignore them most of the night. You're lying there snoring and having your dreams, and they're snoring away having their dreams. And you don't even know that the other one exists. We spend most of our time with people who we love, not actually with them. And so why do we suddenly make a decision? I can't love anymore because the body's gone. It's all changed. It hasn't changed. If you have the consciousness to have access to the unbounded field out of which everything issues forth, you can continue having shared experiences with anyone or anything. And so, we need to do a thing, and I have to thank my student from New York City, Alicia Reiner, for giving me these words. I like to credit her for this. Speed grieving. Speed grieving. We have to learn how to do speed grieving. Grieving, yes. Don't not grieve. Because grieve just means you arrive at reality and conclusiveness. You finish that process. It's a process. But if the process goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on forever, there's no conclusion, then, grieving has the effect of robbing you of access to the world and robbing the world of access to you. Our full spectrum awareness is not available. And the answer is, not, don't grieve. Just forget about it and don't think about it. It'll just go away. That's not what happens. We have to grieve. But let's speed it up. And how do you speed up grieving? Knowledge. Two aspects of knowledge: direct experience, intellectual understanding, wisdom. These two things together make that. And then we're going to become more knowledgeable, and as we are more and more knowledgeable, the speed with which our grieving comes to a conclusion is there. It comes to a conclusion. And then we're able effectively to interact with our fullest potential with the need of the time. So that's all there is about grieving. Take it